What is the honest, realistic total, do you think, of migrant workers who've died as a result of what they're doing for the World Cup in totality?
Well, good evening for the World Cup in Qatar. Welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored. A competition that began in a blaze of hypocritical sanctimony has become what it always should have been, a feast of great football with unpredictable results, unforgettable drama and a billion eyeballs glued to the biggest sporting event on the planet. That's how it should be. For the past few weeks, there's been a uniquely negative narrative about this World Cup, driven, I have to say, mostly from England. Yet here in Doha, reality feels very different. I've been here for a few days now and found a thriving, cosmopolitan sportsman city and a stunning vantage point for a tournament played out in magnificent purpose-built stadiums that are filling up more with every game. I've got to say, the conversation in Qatar is less about rainbow bucket hats and arm pads and more about the football. Why is Gareth Southgate leaving Phil Foden on the bench? Can anyone stop Kylian Mbappe? How badly injured is Neymar? Could Ronaldo or Messi's last World Cups end in the biggest trophy of all? And of course, is it coming home? Spoiler alert, probably not. From here in Qatar, the tournament bears no resemblance to all the doom-mongering headlines back home. Fans from across the world are safe and mingling happily. The stadiums are not selling beer, but those who want to drink alcohol can do so all over the city. There's no sign of the shameful booze-fueled scenes of our own Euros final at Wembley. Now, of course, Qatar is not without fault. Women's rights and gay rights are restricted by Western standards. Migrant workers have indisputably been treated badly. But those statements apply to many of the countries around the world, including many competing in this tournament, and by many nations who've hosted major sporting events without anything like the furore that's kicked off about Qatar. We seem to have forgotten in England that in 1966, when we hosted and won the World Cup, it was illegal to be gay in our country. Moral halos appear to have slipped over some people's eyes and obscured some rather salient facts. For example, there's 12% of the population here are native Qataris, something we in the supposedly sophisticated West would never tolerate. The migrants who come here in vast numbers are sometimes mistreated. But the reason they're here in the first place is because the wages they earn are life-changing. And the global scrutiny of the World Cup has at least led to reforms in labour laws here. That will be an important legacy, and one massively lacking after 2 Olympic Games in China and a World Cup in Russia. Qatar is also a significant investor in many aspects of UK life. For example, it gives us 25% of our gas, which is food for thought, isn't it, as our national grid considers winter blackouts. Would all the virtue signallers back home prefer we tell Qatar to stop sending its gas? This tournament's brought the football-mad Middle East together as well. 2 years ago, Qatar was under a blockade led by Saudi Arabia, Bahrain and the UAE. Now fans from most countries are pouring in to enjoy the football. Saudi's Crown Prince was at the opening ceremony. The Emir of Qatar even waved a Saudi flag during their stunning win over Messi's Argentina. There's no denying the Middle East has a long way to go on human rights and many social issues, but so frankly do a lot of European countries. There's also no denying that this region, the Middle East, has long deserved its World Cup. And there's no denying, and I can tell you, this is what most people here are thinking, that right now Qatar's putting on a pretty good show. And frankly, when it comes to morality, are we in England really in any position to lecture the Middle East about laws or values, given the way we illegally invaded Iraq 20 years ago, sparking 2 decades of ISIS terror, and at last year's Euros final, showed the world that we're a bunch of coke-snorting, booze-sodden, brawling, firework exploding from backside imbeciles? Methinks not.
What is the honest, realistic total, do you think, of migrant workers who've died as a result of what they're doing for the World Cup in totality?
The estimate is around 400. Between 400 and 500. I don't have the exact number. That's something that's being discussed.
I mean, there will be people, Hassan, who say that's a lot of people.
One death is too many.
But they would say 400 is a price too big to pay. What do you say to that?
What I will say is, one death is a death too many, plain and simple. And I think every year, the health and safety standards on the sites are improving, at least on our sites, the World Cup sites, the ones that we're responsible for, most definitely, to the extent that you've got trade unions, representatives of the German trade union, representatives of the Swiss trade union.
But you accept...
Just to make this point, have commended the work that's been done on the World Cup sides and the improvement.
Right, but do you accept then, because of the improvements that have been made, that at the start they weren't good enough, the standards?
I think overall, the need for labor reform in itself dictates that, yes, improvements had to happen. And just so we're clear, this was something that was recognized before we bid. The improvements that have happened isn't because of the World Cup. These are improvements that we knew we had to do because of our own values. Improvements that had to happen, whether it's in terms of health and safety standards, whether it's in terms of improving the accommodation standards, whether it's in terms of dismantling the kafala system. Now, what the World Cup did, the World Cup served as a vehicle, as an accelerant, as a catalyst. It, because of the spotlight, which we recognized early on was going to be shed, it allowed, it caused a lot of these initiatives, not only in terms of improvement in the legislation, but in the enforcement of it as well. And that's where today, where we led to, we got to a position where our most ardent of critics consider us today to be a benchmark in the region.
Well, good evening from London. It seems only yesterday I was in Qatar. It was only yesterday. It was actually at 2 a.m. this morning. So there we are, the wonders of modern travel. Welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored. It's become very fashionable recent years to smear the British monarchy as racist. It's the age of white privilege. Today's royals must atone for colonial sins. They're out of touch beyond reform. They should be abolished and embark on an endless grovelling apology tour for their terrible ancestors. I find most of that complete nonsense. The monarchy is mostly a reason for immense national pride. They represent us with distinction and dignity to the world. That's why when the Queen died, the whole world stopped still for 10 days to pay homage to her and what she stood for. But there is a duty, I think, for everyone at the royal household, from the top down, to be responsible about the positions they hold, and sometimes they let us down. Last night, Camilla, the Queen, the new Queen, hosted a reception on domestic violence at Buckingham Palace. Well, Lady Susan Hussey, Prince William's godmother, and was one of the Queen's closest aides, Queen Elizabeth's closest aides for many, many decades, made racially charged comments to the head of a domestic abuse charity. Ngozi Fulani, the woman she spoke to, released a transcript of what she says is the conversation they had. We've had it voiced by producers.
Where are you from?
Sister Space.
No, where do you come from?
We're based in Hackney.
No, what part of Africa are you from?
I don't know, they didn't leave any records.
Well, you must know where you're from. I spent time in France. Where are you from?
Here, UK.
No, but what nationality are you?
I'm born here and I'm British.
No, but where do you really come from? Where do your people come from?
My people? Lady, what is this?
Oh, I can see I'm going to have a challenge getting you to say where you're from. When did you first come here?
Lady, I am a British national. My parents came here in the 50s when...
Oh, I knew we'd get there in the end. You're Caribbean.
No, lady, I'm of African heritage, Caribbean descent and British nationality.
Well, let me be very clear. Those comments, in today's age, I'm afraid, are shocking. They're crass, they're offensive, they're racist. That's why Lady Hussey has now rightly resigned. The palace says the comments are unacceptable. They've quickly fronted up to this scandal, and for that they deserve credit. This won't go away in a hurry. It will be grist to the mill for those who want to trash the monarchy and brand it a racist institution. The timing could hardly be worse. Next week, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex will be ludicrously given a Human Rights Award for fighting racism in the royal family. It was Meghan, of course, who infamously smeared the monarchy as racist in her Oprah Winfrey Wine-a-thon. Meghan has never produced any evidence.
In tandem, the conversation of he won't be given security, he's not going to be given a title, and also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
Well, Meghan's never given any hard evidence to back up any of her racism claims, but mud sticks, the damage was done. And this scandal will undoubtedly fuel those who think that there was merit to what she said. Now, what's been going on today, by coincidence, is that Prince William and the Princess of Wales have been in the United States, in Boston, for a 3-day tour. And that will now be completely overshadowed by this new race storm back in London. I think that's why he took the unusual step today of attacking Lady Hussey, remember, his own godmother, directly. Racism has no place in society, William's spokesman said. These comments were unacceptable, and it's right that the individual stepped aside with immediate effect. That individual is his own godmother. And make no mistake, she wasn't a minor backroom figure at the palace. Lady Hussey was the late Queen's most loyal lady-in-waiting for, I think, 5 or 6 decades. She stood beside the new Queen, Camilla, on state occasions. And it will raise uncomfortable questions about how somebody in her position could possibly be so stupid. After Meghan's original baseless claims, Prince William said categorically the royal family is not a racist family. And I believe him. I also believe the monarchy is a powerful unifying force in our country. But in this year of transition, with all eyes on King Charles, with the coronation coming, and inevitable questions about the future of the monarchy, it has to do better than this. Nobody capable of such witless and offensive comments should be in the royal household, and it's right Lady Hussey has gone. But there should also now be a full, I think, investigation to see if anybody else in that household shares similar sentiments and views. Because if they do, they shouldn't be there.
Alluded to the fact that you had suicidal thoughts at one stage.
Yeah.
That was serious.
Yeah, that's serious. I mean, you talked about it. I had a wonderful life. Fortunate, lucky. I played 17 years as a footballer. It was glorious. Best years of my life.
15. You can't count the
and the
last
last two were a bit iffy, I'll give you that. Yeah, okay. And then went to work in the sport I love for a new broadcaster that was about to revolutionise football in the way it did, and had 20 years there. So I suddenly found myself in a really dark place. The house surrounded by people. And I knew I had done something wrong. Of course I did. But I couldn't compute it. And my head was gone. And if it hadn't been for my wife, I don't know what would have happened. I really don't. Rachel was amazing. Wonderful.
You were that low?
Yeah, I was close to going down the garden where I used to have a pool, a pond down at the garden with a little bottle and a few pills, and I would have nipped down. I was that bad. One day, I was that bad. Yeah. But
I mean, that's so horrific.
People who know me will probably think, yeah, you're kidding, because you're too...
No, but I can see it in your face now, even as you think about it again.
It's horrible.
It's a very emotional thing to relive for you.
Horrible. I couldn't work it out. I knew I'd done wrong, but I thought, for 2 weeks, I couldn't get out of the house. Just surrounded by press and TV cameras and crews. And... amazing. Weird, really weird. But we're through it now. I am through it now.
And your family was what saved you?
Yeah, Rachel and the kids. And pals. Friends, people who... You learn who your friends are, Piers, when things like that happens to you, and I think we both did, didn't we? We both learned.
Did you know how low Andy was?
Yes, I was there too.
Same?
Oh.
Feeling suicidal?
Oh, Piers.
Really?
You have no idea. Mental health. He's right. You can't explain. You look back now with a clear head and you go, "What? Come on, what are you thinking?" But when you're in that place, and he's right. You couldn't. I used to have to leave my house from my back garden. I would walk to a local nursery that was close by. I got in a taxi and I flew out here actually because Nasser Al-Khalifi, who I'd worked for earlier, 2008, and he wanted me to join then. And of course I should have done. But I was too comfortable. I should have taken his offer, but didn't. So he called and said, "Look, nobody's talking about it out here. Why don't you come out here?" But then the heat got too much, and I felt I had to back away for us because it was going to bring too much attention to this country, and they didn't need to inherit our problems at that time. So we put it on a burner. So in effect, I lost 2 jobs we lost 2 jobs in 2 weeks. One of them of our own volition. But no, it's
Do you think it was wrong that you lost your jobs?
Well,
you talked about how it made you feel.
Well, let me ask you. Can I ask you then? Can I turn that on you?
Yeah.
Because I would like to know. Do you think it was wrong we lost our jobs?
Well, it's interesting. When I've looked at it all again, it feels to me like an overreaction by everybody, because I think that you made fulsome apologies. I know Karen Brady, for example, who is one of the bosses at West Ham, and when one of her players got caught kicking a cat around, horrendous video came out. She said everyone deserves second chance and forgiveness. And yet, I remember her reaction to when you two were sacked, and it was a different reaction. And I felt there was a real kind of feeding frenzy to do you in.
Yeah.